Think go earlier.
All right. We might have found some fresh meat. What's up?
Hi, I'm Rob Cram, and today we're taking a look at Ubisoft's open-world action game Watch Dogs Legion, which comes almost 4 years after its predecessor. The game crosses the pond this time and favours the watery London in the UK over the sunny climes of San Francisco. It's a massive change considering the original game set itself in Chicago. Perhaps then the change of scenery is a good thing, as London's European vibes feel quite a bit different from the American offerings of the past. The story this time is an amalgamation of layers resting on hacker group DedSec, going up against government-employed PMC forces Albion, a rogue underworld gangster, Clan Kelly, headed by Mary Kelly, and anti-terrorist forces Signals Intelligence Response, or SIRS. From the start of the game, DedSec is dismantled after being blamed for a major terrorist attack on London. Your job, in a nutshell, is to rise from the ashes, bring DedSec back online, and uncover the truth behind your fall from obscurity. The story, whilst always going to be quite predictable how it pans out in the end, is engaging and entertaining with its larger-than-life characters. It's certainly well thought out as it means to driving players forwards, especially in a game where it's quite easy to get lost in all the kerfuffle and forget what it is you're supposed to be doing in the grand scheme. Everything works as it should, which is great and totally helpful. A quick look at London's map highlights main missions, who's who, side missions and fast travel tube stations. That's London Underground Network. You can also check all manner of documents and information. All good then. The gameplay itself feels standard fare for an open world third-person action game, featuring the usual tropes. You can run around at will, hijack vehicles, get into fisticuffs with pedestrians, or bring out the guns and cause mayhem. The combat offers pretty decent, non-lethal or deadly approaches, alongside player choice of stealth or action-based play, both of which feel pretty polished, despite some less than stellar opposition AI. You can idly watch the world go by if desired, or get involved and infiltrate restricted zones. For the record, aside from the motorcycles, which handle very well, the driving seems a touch on the floaty side and a little too responsive, with no real inertia when easing off the gas. Driving is very much arcade-like and a means to get from A to B. There's no midnight club street racing scene here, which is a shame and a missed opportunity. What the Watch Dogs series does well though is its hacking, and here is no exception. At any time, players can hack drones and pilot them for a closer look at things, hack the CTOS camera network and gain valuable insights into the opposition without needing direct contact. It's all pretty good, but hasn't advanced much from the previous games. However, some new tools present themselves to players, including the six-legged spider bot, which enables you to sneak into controlled zones and hack away or take care of patrolling guards. It's a neat inclusion that makes sense with keeping your character out of harm's way. There are actually some really cool missions with the spider bots and drones throughout the game, which adds some much needed variety in the absence of a few side activities in the grand scheme. That's one complaint where the game seemingly falters quite hard. There's an underlying sense that whilst most accomplished in what it offers, it could do so much more with the sandbox. Watch Dogs Legion's touted feature and unique selling point though is the player action of rebuilding London's DedSec hacker base by way of recruiting new members. It's a fun meta game that can also serve as a massive distraction from the task at hand. At the start of the game, post-prologue, you choose from a selection of random characters based on ordinary Londoners, and then head out into the wilds. It's a shame you can't create a character from scratch, but at least you can change their clothing from the off. With your hacking phone, you can highlight any pedestrian, worker or security person and learn information about them. Whilst that's nothing new for the series, this time you can actually recruit them into DedSec. Every character, including your enemies, has a backstory and a set of skills which could prove useful to your cause. The only snag being you have to perform set actions to convince them to come on board. Naturally, some require more effort than others, especially if they have a disliking for DedSec. What's clever is how each character has a relationship with DedSec, ranging from positive, neutral, disliked or hated. So for example, you might have accidentally hospitalized, or worse, killed a particular person, and then try to recruit a friend, acquaintance or family member of theirs. It's going to be harder or impossible to do so depending on the severity of their relationship with DedSec, but that also works the other way if you help them. If you manage to interact with an appealing character, then this usually involves an infiltration mission of sorts to gather intel, and then another mission to resolve the problem the person has. It's a novel mechanic and works very well in context of the sandbox. There's perhaps two ways to approach recruiting new members. You either tag people you see that look interesting from a visual point of view, but they might not possess any meaningful skills, or tag people that offer skill sets that prove useful in certain situations. For example, a brawler type character will be good in fisticuffs should your infiltration into restricted zones screw up. Or a spy character's weapon proficiency might prove handy if you're gunning down tough opposition. Hacking experts might make your snooping a lot easier. You get the point. That said, whilst this is a cool feature, it's also the game's biggest letdown. It's pretty easy to ignore the fact that there's no identifiable main character here to gel with as a player. DedSec and its supporting cast itself fulfills that role. You can get over that quickly once you've spent time with your team. However, the team becomes somewhat dispensable and easily replaced, especially as there is no progression system for individual characters. Instead, the game employs upgrades for the entire team via collecting tech points, which are spent on new skills. The game does offer a permadeath option, which we highly recommend you play it this way from the off, which means if an operative dies, they are gone for good. Problem is, regardless of their skill set, it's not too hard to find a replacement. The other problem is, it's quite possible to play the game with characters that possess no skills, making the whole process of hunting down those with extra skills somewhat redundant. A far better system would have employed individual skill progression, giving players a greater sense of investment and loss should they fall along the wayside. As already mentioned, there's a lack of side activities to suit the skills of the people you recruit. You might find a getaway driver, but with no racing events means their skills are wasted. Same for professional hitmen and women. It would have been great to have specific missions for these characters. It seems Watch Dogs Legion has this wonderful recruiting system, but then doesn't fully exploit the potential of it. Gameplay aside, visually Watch Dogs Legion looks fantastic on PC, what with real-time reflections when using ray tracing options and high resolution alongside optional HD textures. This is certainly a glimpse into next-gen visuals and does a grand job of making open-world, city-based games look more realistic. London is faithfully recreated with its unique postmodern and classic architecture fused with a neon-soaked fantasy vision of the near future, making it a joy to play around in, especially when it rains. Character models look great and animate well too, with a nice variation of models, although after extensive play you will start to see clones in different clothing. Unfortunately, the pretty visuals come with a quite high GPU cost to get it looking at its best, where even the most powerful consumer GPU, the RTX 3090, struggles to maintain high frame rates running at max settings and 4K, even as low as 1440p. Thankfully, Nvidia's DLSS helps considerably to bring the cost down, but even then, when driving or walking around London streets, the frames dip considerably. Some improved optimization is definitely needed here. Audio comes in as a mixed bag here and will no doubt be subjective. Some voiceover accents are comical at best, whereas others simply don't fit the game or are too stereotypical or fantastical to command any merit. Whilst the dialogue is strained at times, there are moments where you'll either scratch your head, bemused, or laugh out loud. It's good, there's variety, but sadly some voices might grate and ruin what could be a decent character to have on the team. In terms of longevity, the side missions when recruiting new DedSec members do follow the same pattern after a while, but there's quite a bit of variation. The main missions also offer some neat moments, especially when taking over one of the boroughs. So there's enough here to keep you entertained for 20 plus hours or much more, including the main story arcs. We're on hour 40 and not quite done yet building our dream team of femme fatales. However, as mentioned, there is a lack of things to do in London, which could have expanded the sandbox gameplay more with additional activities to partake in. In this regard, London does feel a bit empty. Watch Dogs Legion then is a fun game and one that should keep you hooked for many hours. That's despite a lack of true inventiveness with its unique recruitment system. With a little more tweaking to the formula, there's potential for some really amazing stuff. As of now though, it's a sneak peek into the future, and whilst it's fun and distracting at the same time, it does let the game down despite being its unique selling point. The game does feature its fair share of performance issues on PC, alongside a lack of things to do in London despite being a real looker. If you can handle the lack of one lead character and enjoy the DedSec movement, you'll have an entertaining romp into the darker yet colourful side of London's underbelly. Core blimey! Watch Dogs Legion scores 8.5 out of 10. Okay, I'm Rob Cram, thanks for watching.
Finally. Feel like I've been waiting forever. You're with DedSec, aren't you? I've been keeping track of your various endeavours and I'm interested.
Would you like to tell me why we're up here?
I needed to see what you were capable of. Can't come to any real conclusion without some concrete results.
And?
I'm impressed. I have a lot to offer DedSec, and I'm willing to join the fight if you're interested.
Brilliant. Welcome to the team. You joining us is totally awesome. Welcome to DedSec.
Yes, well, I'm ready to help however I can.
Brill.
Action will be taken against you. Right. No. Oh, wait.